In this episode, we discuss what led to the Haridwar stampede that killed 8 and injured 30 others. We also talk about a mob entering the house of an army veteran and labeling him Bangladeshi. But we begin today by discussing the India-UK trade and why it might be a bit premature to count it as a success. Hi, I'm Ichha Sharma, and you're listening to 3 Things, the Indian Express news show. Last week, India made a major stride in its global trade strategy by signing the much-awaited bilateral free trade agreement with the United Kingdom, its first full-fledged deal with a developed nation. The deal was signed against the backdrop of a volatile global trade environment, with threats of reciprocal tariffs by the United States under President Donald Trump. In fact, it was just yesterday that Trump confirmed India will face 25% tariffs plus a penalty, though he did not clarify what exactly that penalty would be. Now, as part of the agreement, India has secured market access for key job-creating sectors like textiles, footwear, gems and jewelry, and marine products, where the UK is set to eliminate duties of up to 20%. And the negotiators have also managed to remove import duties on nearly 99.7% of all Indian exports over a period of 10 years. To understand the key components of this deal and assess what it means for trade, jobs, and the overall economy, my colleague Shashank Bhargava speaks to the Indian Express's Ravi Mishra.
So Ravi, we understand that this deal was years in the making, right? In fact, India had wanted to get something like this done as far back as 2017. So talk about what took so long.
So there are a number of issues when we are discussing a trade deal with a Western trade partners, because they've been signing free trade agreements for a long time. They are ahead of us in this game, and for us, losing the protectionism took a fair bit of time. Opening up our automobile industry would be a very problematic thing, maybe a decade back or 2 decades back. But now we have finally decided that in order to get some access in some other sector, we'll have to open up. So that's where the needle has moved. And yes, after 2020, there was a political crisis in UK. After Brexit in 2016, there were 3 prime ministers from 2021 to 2024. And finally, when Keir Starmer came into the picture with a very strong majority, that's when, the deal moved forward.
Right, and I guess one of the impetus for this deal would also be the US tariffs, right? Because India especially has been very concerned about that.
Oh, absolutely. So when we talk to, trade experts, these are the 2 things that they say. This is the Trump effect. Number 1, there'll be a increased amount of dumping, because China will be looking for different markets. Number 2, there'll be more and more deal making across the world because a huge trade partner is now becoming unpredictable. So a deal is nothing but looking for certainty, looking for a legal framework where investments and trade can flow smoothly. And that you might be seeing across the newspapers. US is signing a deal with Japan, and multiple such deals are happening because we need certainty.
And before we get into the details of this deal, could you just give us a broad outline as to how it is expected to help India?
So, one of our deep-seated concerns or problems are the jobs and investment. And that has been the case for a long time. So from 2000, our labor-intensive sectors like textile, footwear, marine products, gems and jewelry, they have not seen a substantial increase. And when these sectors don't grow, you see job losses. And this is the time, the last 20 years, this is the time when Vietnam went ahead. Vietnam is a smaller country than India, much smaller country. China, of course, with the tariffs in the Western markets, they have gotten ahead. So the share that should have come to India because of the size and scale of our country, the capacity that we can deliver, we have not been able to, but we can, has not happened. So these free trade agreements were necessary. They could not take place before, and we lost that opportunity. So that is the big picture here. Getting trade-related jobs, which primarily come in the textiles, gems and jewelry, marine products, and that has been our key ask in every FTA.
And what about UK? What is UK getting out of this deal?
Okay, UK is getting, entry in two big market in India. One is automobile, and the other is Scotch whiskey. And these are the two things that they want to get market access across the world. They are good at it. Scotland is known for GI Scotch, and automobile, because automobile can help them get that industrial power back, because that is the nature of automobile industry. Once automobile industry gains firm footing, there will be component industry that will come in, and there will be allied industries. So it's kind of a big deal if India has allowed access to automobile. Of course, in a very staggered manner, things will happen, or duties will go down in a period of 10 years. But we have losing our protectionism in some sense. So that is what UK is getting. Number two, of course, integrating our services market. We are a large exporter of services, IT services especially. They need people. They need that kind of integration. We also need that kind of integration. So those were and of course, China is a big factor. Nobody talks about it, but everybody wants to de-risk themselves from China because of the stance that China has taken. So that is one of the pillars on which a lot of our trade deals are moving forward.
Okay, so let's take this step by step. You mentioned that, one of the big advantages that India will get out of this deal is that we're going to get more trade-related jobs, especially in labor-intensive sectors like leather and textile. So talk about in what way does this deal address that, especially in terms of reducing tariffs?
Okay, so, there are countries like Bangladesh, Cambodia, Bangladesh especially, they have zero duty access in the UK market because of their LDC status. Least developed countries, LDC. So that is what it stands for. And Bangladesh getting zero duty access means that all the jobs are going to Bangladesh. And Bangladesh has twice as big as a textile industry than us. And we are a bigger nation, we have more sectors, but the job problem is the same in the Southeast Asian countries, So there are countries like Vietnam, there are countries like Bangladesh, Cambodia, who have gotten a bigger foothold in the UK market, in the US market, in the European market, and we have not. So the one way in which we can bring parity to this situation is by getting FTA done and reducing those tariffs. And that is what has happened in the UK deal. Now, immediately, getting a tariff reduction does not mean that you will sell more products, does not mean that jobs will automatically flow.
Right, this is only giving us an opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. This is only bringing us at par with other competitors. Now, we have a lot of problems. We have a problem of producing enough cotton. We have a problem in the labor sector. And those are impediments that we'll have to work on in order to finally get the benefit. Because we have had a trade deal with Japan where we got market access in textile. That did not result in greater exports. So yes, it is only the start, and how much we will be able to benefit depends on the industry, the textile ministry, the commerce ministry, and the broader policy push.
And by the way, you mentioned India's competitors in the UK, Bangladesh and Vietnam. Is China a competitor in that sense?
Oh, absolutely. That is the elephant in the room. China faces over 20% tariffs, and still it has the largest chunk of the market because China is competitive. And there's an interesting bit of thing here to understand. China has not signed as many FTAs as other nations have. China has always relied on producing cheaper products, having that scale, and giving that kind of stability in other markets. So that has been the China model, and they have been successful to a larger extent. And if you want to compete with China, get that market share, the roadmap is always competitiveness. It's not only FTA that will deliver. There has to be products which can beat the Chinese products, the Bangladeshi products, the Vietnamese products. And that has not happened as of now.
Okay, and we were earlier talking about cars and whiskey. Now, this is one sector which India has opened up for the UK. Talk about what have been some of the reactions to this, because this is happening at a time when the domestic whiskey market and gin market have been opening up. Talk about how this industry has reacted to this.
So, industry usually is not very welcoming to competition for obvious reasons. But in case of our alcohol beverage industry, they have not really happy about it. But you have to open up something to get something else. That is what the government's stand is. And somebody yesterday in the ministry was telling me that, the amount of scotch that Scotland produces is less than the scotch we consume in our country. So you can understand the quality that is coming in. So the consumers also weigh in. That factor is also there. And we have an industry of blending. We can import scotch and then sell it to maybe become an exporter as well. So there are a lot of discontent in the industry on maturation, especially. This debate was happening. UK says that the standard amount of time when a whiskey matures and can be called a whiskey is 3 years. And our industry had said that, look, we're a hotter country, you have to loosen up the standard. It can't be 3 years. Our whiskey matures in 1 or 2 years. So that debate was always there, and no resolution could arrive. But then, that is the nature of trade. You lose something, you get something.
And this trade deal also concerns agricultural products. And agriculture in India has always been a sensitive issue. It's a political issue. In the past couple of years, we've seen a number of very intense farmers' protests. Talk about in what way does this deal address that?
So in this deal, we have gotten access in the UK market for a number of products. Around 50 to 60% of our product lines have been opened. But the problem here again is the standards. You might have seen, you might have read a story last month or a couple of months back. US rejected 5 lakh worth of mangoes that were sent because it did not match the quality. And that is the big picture. Our standards are not at par with what they demand. Sometimes these are non-tariff barriers also, which means that they will impose certain rules just to restrict your products. But at times standards are also an issue. So that is where we need to work. But what our officials say is that there is a broader alignment, as in they will agree to our way of checking things and purifying things, and work is going on, and that will go on for a long time.
And also, this is the first time that India has allowed UK firms to participate in government tenders, offering them a Class 2 status under the Make in India rules. So talk a bit about that. To what extent does this benefit the UK, and what does it do for India?
So, tenders worth above 5 to 6 crores will be open for UK. And this has been a kind of a no-go area for India in the last number of FTAs that we have signed, except for UAE. So what the industry says, in order to get access in other countries' public procurement, you have to also open up. For instance, in UAE, it was more than their interest, it was our interest to get access in UAE, especially construction. UAE has been kind of developing at a faster rate, and that's where we wanted to get in. Our exporters wanted to get in. And, the needle has moved in terms of public procurement. We are becoming less and less stringent. But what one official was telling me yesterday is there is still significant amount of protection for the domestic manufacturers like MSMEs. MSMEs are treated as Class 1. And UK will be Class 2. So priority will still be given to MSMEs, and that is the major industry which MSMEs rely on.
And the other sort of bone of contention between the two nations had been the mobility of workers, right? For the past couple of years, Indians have faced issues when trying to get jobs in the UK. Although one of the things that we have discussed in the past when it comes to this deal is the social security aspect. Skilled workers and their employers, they won't have to pay social security up to 3 years now. But talk a bit more about this point. What does this deal do for this, ease of mobility?
Services is extremely important when you're dealing with a Western trade partner, because in terms of goods, the market is still limited. It's not expanding at that pace like ours. So services is where you can integrate with the market and perhaps accrue some benefits. In the UK's case, we have not gotten any additional visas or, anything very specific in terms of Mode 4. But what we have gotten is tax relief of inter-corporate transferees, people who go there for 3 years, and there's a bit of a tax relief there. And their dependents will also be able to work. They will be able to take their families there. So there's a bit of a cushion, but my reading is that services we should have gotten more access, because that's where the real benefit lies.
And also one of the things that you have reported on is that in this trade deal, India has failed to get concessions for small and medium enterprises under the UK's carbon border adjustment mechanism, which basically places a carbon tax on certain imported goods. Talk about how big of a concern that is for India.
So, carbon tax, ever since we started, negotiating a trade deal with the West, this was the elephant in the room, so to say. Because while China is considered to be a very big manufacturing power and they push so many products, it would have been very difficult for us to gain any market access in China. The problem with the West was that they were going to impose CBAM, carbon tax. And the nature of carbon tax is that it is ever expanding. They have 5 products that they're talking about right now. They have provisions in CBAM that will expand to various other sectors. So you never know how big of a barrier will CBAM pose in the future. Now, this is a separate thing. What our officials say that CBAM has not been implemented as of now, and so it cannot be part of the deal. But Indian Express had reported on May 6th that a provision was inserted in the deal, and now if it is not there, I can only deduce that UK did not agree to it. So the problem here is that you have one tariff concessions over the period of 10 years. You will get market access, you will get reduced duty in 99% of the tariff lines. But in 2027, if they take back some of those concessions under some other tax policy, then what good is the negotiations? What good are these things? So that is a big concern at the moment. What our minister said is that if they hurt our interests, we will also retaliate. But then a deal was supposed to bring us closer and not, push us further apart.
And Ravi, finally, just to take a step back, I mean, this deal has been celebrated a lot. But what listeners also need to keep in mind is that this is just an opportunity, because unless we capitalize on this, we won't be able to benefit from it. For example, when it comes to mobility of workers, we'll need skilled workers for that. And that means we'll have to invest in better education and skilling programs. When it comes to capitalizing on certain exports, we'll have to ensure that we have the necessary regulatory framework and we have industries set up in a way that they will produce quality products, that UK can accept.
100% on the dot. So you getting a trade deal is only half the battle you have won. You have signed deals with a number of countries. It's not like we have not signed deals. We have signed deals with ASEAN countries. We have signed with Japan, number of such deals. But what pattern is emerging from there is the other countries tend to sell more than we are able to because we lack competitiveness. So competitiveness and trade deals go hand in hand. You can't have a lot of trade deals and then not produce anything, not sell, not be competitive. And that has been the problem. But of course, the work is going on. A fair bit of work on logistics has gone on. You get out and talk to anybody, they will say that roads have gotten better in certain areas. But then you also will hear that the industrial growth is still stuck. And that is the solution to all our problems. We have to bring in investments, like our finance minister Sitaraman keeps talking about. Private investments are still not coming in, and those will require broader policy push and not just a trade deal.
And next, we shift our focus to yet another stampede, this time in Uttarakhand. Over the past few months, we have reported on several such incidents in Odisha, Uttar Pradesh and Goa, all of them unfolding during large religious gatherings. What we have seen is that these stampedes are often triggered not just by overcrowding, but also by fear, poor infrastructure, and a lack of timely response. And now a similar tragedy unfolded in the early hours of Sunday at Haridwar's Mansa Devi temple. This time, it was a rumor that an electrical wire had snapped. This rumor quickly spread through the crowd and caused panic, leading to a stampede that left at least 8 people dead and around 30 others injured.
So, Mansa Devi temple is situated around 500 meters above the sea level.
This is the Indian Express's Aiswarya Raj, who reported on the story for the newspaper.
This is in Haridwar, and it's situated quite near Har Ki Paudi, where Kawad Yatris go to collect Ganga water. And this is also one of their stops. They go from Har Ki Paudi to Mansa Devi temple. And especially in the month of Sawan, a lot of visitors are expected in the temple, but they do not keep an official count. They do not have a registration system, which is why, according to temple authorities, an estimate they have is between 20,000 people between 5 and 9 a.m. on any day in Sawan. So especially when the stampede happened, it was a Sunday morning, they had around 20,000 people from this 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. And if we compare it to figures outside the season, it's around 5,000 people daily. So they saw the visitors around 4 times that figures on that particular morning.
She tells us that the 1.5-kilometer stretch leading up to the temple is narrow and often extremely congested. The pavement is less than 3 meters wide and serves as the only footpath for both those entering and exiting the shrine. So, to understand what exactly happened at the temple and what the authorities have said in response, we spoke to Aishwarya, who began by telling us what led up to the incident.
So around 8:40, the police got information that there was a stampede, and we get to know from the FIR registered that this was triggered by panic by someone allegedly saying that there was an electrical wire and current was passing through it, which led to the stampede situation. The FIR is also against unknown persons for spreading the rumor. But we also have to factor in other things as well, because when we look at the ramp, which is a pedestrian path for people, it's such a short path, and people exiting and entering the temple use this pedestrian path, which is why it was quite cramped on that day. And if we are saying these many people are attending or going to the temple in Savan, that means they should have had proper arrangements, which a lot of people, a lot of devotees, as well as the staff working there have said that they had relaxed arrangements, especially after Kavod Yatra, because they were not expecting a lot of people. So around 8:40, it is said that someone was trying to tug a wire and it broke off from the circuit box, and they alleged that there was an electrical current passing through it, and this resulted in the rush. Also, recently, the authorities have also started this anti-encroachment campaign, and 3-meter wide path encroached upon by shops on one side, and they have started this anti-encroachment drive to remove these shops.
And Aishwarya, tell us, what has the administration said about this incident so far? Like, how has it responded to it?
So the administration and police have pinned the blame completely on the rumor, which allegedly created panic among the people. And there was also little information about why there was no registration, why there was no head count, or, instructions about carrying capacity, because it's also atop a hill. And there was little discussion on crowd control. And when we spoke with the witnesses as well as the victims, they said that there were very few police officers. And even after they saw the stampede happen, it took some time for them to get deployed, come down and help these people out. So there was a lacuna in that part as well.
And speaking about the victims, could you talk a bit about who they are and what do we know about the families affected?
The deceased are mainly from Uttar Pradesh. 6 of them are from Uttar Pradesh, 1 from Bihar and 1 from Kashipur in Uttarakhand. And 3 of them were children.
And lastly, Aishwarya, what precautionary measures are being suggested for better management in such situations?
In the wake of this stampede, the disaster management department in Uttarakhand government, they have said that they have acknowledged the fact that children and elderly people were the vulnerable population, that they got affected disproportionately. And they have said that they would take crowd control measures. So they said that they wouldn't put a cap on the number of people visiting the pilgrimage centers, but they would try to limit the number of people there at one time. And also, another thing that we should consider is that there was this blockade on the path. Whenever there is an increase in the number of devotees, the police used to block the path, but this time they did not. They allegedly did not. That's what the witnesses and the victims claimed, which is why the rush was too much and too hard to control. So the administration in the wake of it has said that they would try to control the numbers, they would enforce more barricading and improve the arrangements so as to avert such incidents.
And in the end, we shift our focus to an alarming incident in Pune. It has now come to light that a group of 60 to 70 people entered the home of a Muslim family in Pune's Chandan Nagar last week, accusing them of being illegal Bangladeshi immigrants and demanding to see their citizenship documents. The family notably includes members who have served in the Indian Army, including a veteran of the Kargil War. According to a report by the Indian Express's Soham Shah, Shamshad Sheikh, a resident of the house, said the mob entered around midnight, kicked open the door and began searching the home. Groups of people went into different rooms, waking up women and children. Even after the family showed them Aadhaar cards, PAN cards and voter IDs, the group insisted the documents were fake. Plain-clothed police officers were reportedly present during the incident, but did not intervene to stop the harassment. Instead, family members were taken to the Chandan Nagar police station and instructed to return the next morning, with one officer allegedly stating they would be declared Bangladeshis if they failed to appear. Shah reports that a formal complaint was later filed at the police station. And according to the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Somay Munde, the police had received a tip-off about suspected illegal Bangladeshi nationals. He said the operation was part of a combing exercise to verify the status of people allegedly from Assam and confirmed that the family members were brought in for questioning but released that night. The investigation into both the mob intrusion and the citizenship claims is currently ongoing. Irshad Ahmed, one of the family members, said they have been living in Pune since the 1960s. He also said that their family has a long military history, with members who served in the 1965, 1971 and Kargil wars. They even shared photographs of army ID cards and pension documents with the police and media, including those belonging to Kargil war veteran Hakimuddin. Ahmed expressed frustration that despite the service to the country, they were subjected to such suspicion and humiliation in their own home. Shah further reports that local political figures, including NCP leader Pradeep Deshmukh, condemned the incident and demanded action. Deshmukh said no one has the right to take the law into their own hands, and that if any police personnel supported the mob, they too should be held accountable. You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank, Bhargava and me, Ichha Sharma. If you like the show, do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. You can also recommend it to someone you think may like it, with a friend or in your family. This is the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast or write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.